Hello, grade 9s. We're going to continue with factorization. Today we're moving on to the difference of two squares, in other words, dots. We're going to be working with the slide factorization, slide numbers 22 to 29. So, yesterday we worked with common factor, which you guys should know by now. Now we're going to go on to the easier and the nicer one, which is dots. And I'm going to start off with a very simple example. A squared minus b squared. Now, what it means is the difference of two squares. We know that's squared because it's got the squared there. We know that's squared. So we have two squares. And difference in maths means subtraction. So we have a difference of two squares. And how we answer this is we open up two brackets, plus, minus. Always like that, grade 9s. Then we say to ourselves, what times what gives us a squared? It's a and a. What times what gives us b squared? B and b. And we have factorized that using difference of two squares. Now, to go on to example 1, they've given us 9x squared minus 16y squared. So, 9 is a squared number because it's 3 squared. X is a squared because it's got the 2 there. 16 is a squared number because it's 4 squared. And then that is squared because it's got the 2 there. So, open up two brackets, plus, minus. What times what gives us the 9? It's 3 and 3. What times what gives us x squared? X and x. What times what gives us 16? 4 and 4. And then what times what gives us y squared? It's y and y. And we have factorized. Moving on to example 2. Four p squared minus 1. Now let's have a look here. We know that 4 is a squared number. It's 2 squared. That's definitely squared. It's got the 2 there. Now, is 1 a squared number? Well, yes, it is, because 1 times 1 gives you the 1. So that's 1 squared. That's definitely a squared number. So, open up two brackets, plus, minus. What times what gives you 4? It's 2 and 2. What times what gives you p squared? P and p. The last one, what times what gives you 1? It's 1 and 1. And we have factorized. Moving on to example 3. 81 a squared c squared minus 36 d squared. So 81 is a squared number because it's 9 squared. That is squared. That is squared. 36 is a squared number. It's 6 squared. And then that is squared. We've got the 2 over there and we're subtracting. So open up two brackets. What times what gives you 81? It's 9 and 9. What times what gives you a squared? A and a. What times what gives you c squared? C and c. Then what times what gives you the 36? 6 and 6. What times what gives you the d squared? D and d. And we have factorized. Moving on to example 4. We have a to the 4, b to the 4, minus 1. Now, grade 9s, you're probably thinking, but this is different from the rest because we don't have a squared like we did with all of these. Grade 9s, if this power is an even number, you can use the difference of two squares. So that's an even number, and that's an even number. 2 was even, 2 was even, and 2 was even. We can use the difference of two squares, and I will show you now how we do it. Open up two brackets, plus, minus. What times what will give you a to the 4? It's a2, a2. What times what will give you b to the 4? b2, b2. What times what gives you 1? It's 1 and 1. So we have factorized it in terms of that. But you must be careful, grade 9s. If we have a look at this first one, that's nothing we can do. There's no common factor, and it's not a difference of 2 squares because we are adding. If we look at this one on the other hand, that is definitely squared, that is definitely squared, subtracting, and 1 is a squared number. So we have a difference of 2 squares. So we need to factorize this one further. The first one we leave, there is nothing we can do with it. The second bracket, however, I'm going to factorize. Plus, minus, just like what we would do with any normal difference of 2 squares. Then we ask ourselves, what times what gives us the a squared? It's a and a. What times what gives you the b squared? It's b and b. Moving on to the next one. What times what gives you the 1? It's 1 and 1. So this was from there, and that one was just left alone. Nothing we can do there, grade 9s. That's a plus, so it doesn't fall into difference of 2 squares. This is the only minus one, but let's just check. That doesn't have a squared, and it's not an even number, so we can't factorize that. Moving on to the next example. Okay, so having a look here, that is an even number, so that's a good sign. 256, is that a squared number? Well, yes it is. It's 16 times 16. So we have a difference of 2 squares. So how do we do this? Open up your 2 brackets like normal. Plus, minus. Now, what times what gives you x to the 8? It's x to the 4, x to the 4. Just remember, grade 9s, going back to exponents. If bases are the same and we're multiplying, because that's what we do here, we multiply these. X to the 4 times x to the 4. If your bases are the same and you're multiplying, what do you do with the exponents? You add them. So 4 plus 4 gives you the 8. Then, what times what gives you 256? It's 16 and 16. Right, let's have a look if we can go further. Nothing we can do with this one because it's a plus. Let's have a look at this one. Well, that's an even power, and 16 is a square number. 4 times 4 gives you 16. So this is a difference of 2 squares. So you open up your 2 brackets, plus, minus. Now you ask yourself, what times what gives you x to the 4? It's x squared and x squared. What times what gives you 16? It's 4 and 4. So we expanded that from that. But now, let's just double check if we can go further. Well, this one we can't do anything with. It's a plus. That one we can't do anything with. It's a plus. Here we have a minus. We might have a difference of 2 squares. Well, that's a squared. And 4 is a squared number. It's 2 squared. So we can expand that. So I leave this one. I leave that one. And I'm going to factorize this last one over here. Plus, minus. What times what gives you x squared? It's x and x. What times what gives you 4? It's 2 and 2. So I factorize this one from there. Grade 9s, I would like you to do exercise 18.5, numbers 1 to 23, please. Thank you.